All episodes of the Real Women in Business podcast reflect the opinions and views of the guest and cast McCrory and do not reflect official policy or position of employers or clients. Thank you.
You're listening to the Real Women in Business podcast. I'm your host, Cass McCrory, and in this podcast, we highlight women in all kinds of businesses. For yourself, someone else, full-time, part-time, overtime hustle, together we will learn from and with one another. And if we get it right, it'll lift us all. Let's get into it.
Friends, today we're talking to Christine Egan. Christine is a breast cancer survivor, a mom of 3, a wife, and she is redefining healthy. And that's where you'll find her online. And everything that Christine does is just it's in alignment of just taking really impeccable care of yourself and being in the journey of life. And she asks some amazing questions of us in this episode. And I want you to really hold space for them to be answered by you. She asked the question of what could this look like for us in so many different areas of life that really it allowed for endless possibility and really different journeys. You're going to love that conversation, or that part of our conversation rather. And then Christine gives us permission to do our life the way we want to do it now. This is a really special episode. You're going to love it. Let's get to the show. Christine, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I have had the pleasure of being in your orbit now for about 4 years. That's how I think of it. There was a very short season where we were in the same mastermind group.
That's right. That's right.
And you just left such a warm impression.
Oh, and I love following you and seeing all these kids, like one after the other, after the other. It's like, I knew you when XYZ. There was one kid.
There was one person. Exactly. And now there's so many. I'd love for you to share a little bit with the audience about who you are and what it is you do in this world.
Okay. Well, my name is Christine Egan. And foremost, I am a mother of 3, and now I could say like 3 grown children. I am a wife of my high school sweetheart, coming up on 24 years. I am an author of the Healthy Girl's Guide to Breast Cancer. And I am a coach for women post-cancer, helping put their lives back together after a cancer diagnosis. And that's me in a nutshell.
This is really, I love how you just framed all of this so neatly, because we know that how life unfolds is not always very neat.
No.
And you've come into this space of creating coaching programs that support women kind of post-cancer. How did that come to be?
Well, I had a private health coaching business, a nice part-time work that I was doing at home and in my community, helping moms become healthier for themselves so that they in turn could be healthier for their families. And out of left field, I was diagnosed with breast cancer 9 years ago. And I was not the one who was supposed to get cancer, right? I was what I coined myself, the healthiest girl in the room. So I was like the healthiest person. It was the people all around me that were supposed to get cancer, not me. And when I was diagnosed, I kind of took it upon myself to figure out what kind of treatments were going to work best for me, not just for a breast cancer patient. But I felt as though I was a very specific breast cancer patient because I was so healthy my whole life. And then kind of reinvented my life post-cancer of how I want to live a much louder life, one without fear, one that pays attention to the things that I really want to do and really shut out the things that I don't want to do. How to be very mindful when my children are around so that I can take it all in, and be really present with my husband when we are together. And just be really cognizant that life goes by and really take advantage of every single day and every single minute.
There's so much to unpack in that. A louder life post-cancer.
Yeah.
How does that juxtapose against who you were just as a healthy woman, mom, and wife before cancer?
Yeah. Okay. So the big difference is, so let me even back up one more from there. We homeschooled our 3 kids, K through 12. And it just started accidentally. I've just been talking with some parents who are looking to homeschool their kids this year. And I love when people have these preconceived notions of us homeschooling. And I had to like break down their stereotypes and say the homeschooling kind of started accidentally. My husband is an orthodontist and works like those afternoons into the early evenings. Those are his busy times, really from like 3 o'clock until like 7. So by the time he would get home at between like 7 and 8 o'clock at night, and when the kids were little, they'd be in bed by then. And it was like one of those moments was like, if I was going to see the kids when they were awake, I need them to be home in the mornings. So what could that look like for us? And it looked like, okay, let's attempt to homeschool and just do it for a few years and then kind of reevaluate. And then it kind of just snowballed into this K through 12 for 3 kids. And we just kind of really changed our life and changed our lifestyle and kind of was, living outside the box. Like we live in a very, school-oriented community where like school spirit and, people move to this area for the school district. And here we were, homeschooling our 3 kids up on the 3rd story of our house. And I think spending time as a family and allowing that time to understand the things that were important to us as a family, and then take that on a whole other level post-cancer. So while I was, it was a year's worth of cancer treatments, really understanding what the important things that had to get done in a day were, or the important things that we needed to do as a family were, kind of all got shuffled around. So they were shuffled around to begin with because we were homeschooling, and then add this other layer on of not being at 100%, then the really important things rise to the top, right? Not every birthday party needs to be attended. Not every karate class has to be gone to. Dance classes can be missed. Meals can be missed, and cereal can be for dinner. Like just things that my own preconceived notion of me as a mom or us as a family or me as a person kind of changed post-cancer. And let me add this. It's a struggle. It's a working at it every single day to be in alignment with who I say I am and who I want to be.
That is such potent magic right there. Like I have chills. Like it is a worthy struggle to be in alignment and to be who I say I want to be.
Yeah. It's a constant, working. It's not like just magic happens and every day I get up and run and every day I make a smoothie and every day I make, take my 50 supplements. Like some days are a struggle and some days are easier, but it's a commitment to who I want to be.
It's a commitment to who I want to be. That is I think there's no greater commitment we can make in this life than to the person that we want to be.
Yeah. And, the other part to that story is sometimes that commitment is a part-time job. Sometimes it's a full-time job. And just knowing that my health takes most days is a part-time job for the amount of time and space that I need to give myself in order to feel 100% and be a great wife and be a great mom and be a great coach takes at least a part-time job, if not more. And sometimes it's a full-time job. Sometimes when I'm not feeling great, or my health is, not where it needs to be, or I'm feeling tired, or I'm feeling grumpy, then I know that I need to be giving myself more of a full-time message of pay attention, pay attention, pay attention.
How intentional is your practice of taking care of yourself?
Oh, how intentional is it? On a scale of 1 to 10, it's a 12.
Okay. And is it something that you think about, like, this is how I'm going to take care of myself, like tomorrow? Or is it more like, I decided, so as we're recording this, today is my birthday.
Oh, happy birthday.
Right? But I think birthdays and the new year, these tend to be really big milestone points in your life where you're like, this is how it is from now on. I'm curious, like, if you said, or if it's like every day it's an active tweak, or how do you actually create this intentionally?
Yeah, so that's pretty much the work I do with women, is we learn what's in our toolbox. Right? We put together a list, or the other description I give women, and they really kind of understand this, is like a buffet line, right? Like,
yeah,
there are different items on the buffet line that you take. So some days, it's, a 5-minute meditation. Some days it's, I'm taking all my supplements. Some days it's, I'm going to allow myself 15 minutes before I pick my kids up from school, and I'm going to sit quietly in the parking lot. Or it means I'm going to allow myself, a half an hour to read today. Or while I'm on my walk/run, I'm going to listen to a book on tape that I know is going to elevate the way I feel. So we kind of pull together these things that light us up, or the things that make us feel better, or vibrate on a much higher level, or help us be a better mom, better wife, better friend. And then we kind of just add them to the list. And some days a lot of the things get done, and some days only one of the things get done. But we know what's on the buffet line and what we can choose from.
I think that is really important work, especially for women that are wearing a lot of hats and doing a lot of juggling. I definitely relate to this. I feel like as you're talking, I'm like furiously taking notes about what that buffet line can look like for me, and evaluating it fresh for this season. Because I think, especially I think it's true for every woman, but I think it's easy for me to put myself in my own shoes right now and say, yeah, as a mom that's juggling kids and work and being a wife and all of these things, the buffet line looks really different. If I don't know what's on the buffet, I'm likely to just tune out.
Yeah. And then that's when you have like those Groundhog Days where it's like the same exact day. And it's like, were we in September, or are we in the beginning of November? Because that was like a big blur that just happened.
Yeah.
And I don't want women to go through life like that.
That is probably the best mission I've ever heard, is that I don't want women to run through that life of the hamster wheel, the Groundhog Day, because there's more.
Because I know there's more. And there's more for everybody. Like, we all deserve it. It's not like I deserve it because I had cancer. And it's not like you deserve it because you have 4 kids. It's like we all deserve it just because.
It's inherent.
It's inherent.
What's on your buffet line these days?
Oh, well, I just had a huge buffet line because I've been at the beach for I think we counted 33 days out of the summer this year. So that's one of a big takeaway from time with cancer, is really learning what the things are that make me feel healthy. And one of the big things that make me feel healthy is like slowing down those external stimulances, meaning like cars and lawnmowers and leaf blowers and, whatever else summer noise brings on, and escaping to the beach for a little while because I feel like a whole different person when I'm there. And in the beginning, I'd feel a lot of guilt around that. Like, I can't believe that we're spending the money to be here at the beach. Who am I to be here by myself while my family commutes back and forth? And then it's like, yeah, well, this is well worth it if it's keeping you healthy and keeping you sane. Yeah, so that's that was a big part of my buffet line this year, was being at the beach, cooking, 3 meals a day, just biking from supermarket to beach, and there are no cars there. And it kind of just helps ground me and keeps my head clear and creative.
Yes. What are you creating?
Just writing to my community, sharing more stories, writing for different publications, just sharing different points of view for some things that I have coming up. I'm doing this crazy endurance event in October. And it's climbing a mountain 17 times to equal the height of Mount Everest, which is 29,029 feet, but you only have 36 hours to do it. Mm-hmm. And last year, my husband and I attempted to do it. It was my 50th birthday, and it was October, which is a breast cancer awareness month. And I thought, what better way to spend my birthday and this whole month of doing something that was so outside my comfort zone. And I didn't get to the 17 last year, so I feel like we have unfinished business. And we're training with the intention of doing the 17 this October. And it's been quite a journey of becoming more of an athlete, and kind of retraining my brain for continuing on when things feel uncomfortable, how to feel comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Usually I save this for the end of the episode, but I know that there is a woman that just has pulled over on the side of the road and is listening to this, and she needs to get you in her inbox. Where can people find you?
You can find me on regular social media. I'm on Instagram as Christine Egan. And I have a website called Redefining, and then a dash, and then healthy. And the whole redefining healthy part, we've kind of really been talking about this whole time, was what my mission was while I was undergoing cancer treatment. Was like, if I can maintain this whole idea of health and wellness in my own head, even though I have cancer. So how can I still be this healthy person even though? So how can I maintain this whole health and wellness even though I have cancer? And it kind of really became evident when I was talking to women about the book, that my version of health isn't your version of health, isn't the version of the woman across the street. If I'm out there climbing this mountain 17 times, obviously that's something that makes me feel strong and healthy, but it might not be on your list at all. So what's your version of health? My version of health meant being alone at the beach and my family coming and going. That was a big part of feeling healthy. For some women, it may mean to drink water a half dozen times a day in order for them to, feel hydrated, for them to feel clearer. For some women, it may mean, like I said before, getting to that dance class 15 minutes early and having alone time in the car before more kids get in. Mm-hmm.
I love how you really create so much space for women to define it for themselves, and you're modeling it in a really evolving way for you too.
Yeah, because it is ever changing. Like back in the beginning, I never ever thought I would do a coffee enema. Remember you asked me before about Like, what is it that has changed? Like those things, like taking 50 supplements, that was never on my list. I never wanted to be that person. And yet, 9 years later, that is who I've become. Yeah, there's a lot of stretching that goes on. And, we can stretch so much and then you kind of go back a little bit. It's kind of like a rubber band. We stretch, and then it becomes like this, can't stretch anymore. And then it kind of goes back, but it doesn't go back to the original shape. It goes back to a slightly bigger version of where that rubber band was originally.
And I think that really ties into that thing that you were saying about living a louder life. Like it's a bigger, like as you stretch yourself,
yeah,
you're creating a louder version of yourself.
Yeah.
I want to go back to the homeschooling because
Mm-hmm.
I'm fascinated by this. And I love how it just came out so organically and this is just what was right for our family because we valued each other and we wanted to spend more time together. And this was the way we could make that happen.
Yeah.
What would you say to a woman or a family really that is thinking, I'm not really loving how the school year is constraining our family time? What advice would you give somebody that's just starting out on the curiosity in homeschooling?
So the big thing I talk about homeschooling is you're not doing school at home. Like you need to put that school system out of your head. You're not going to be sitting down with your child from the hours of 9 and 3. Like that's unrealistic. That's not how homeschooling works. You're not going to be buying the books or getting the books from your school because you're not doing a replica of school at home. That's the first thing I tell people. The second thing I say is if you're transitioning from a school, kids that have been in school and then plan on teaching them at home, to take off as much time as possible before you start with the books. And what that can look like is, can you do family trips to the museum where you're just at the museum for, 3 hours? Can you go to the planetarium? Can you go to a local park and start making a game out of the animals that are at the park? Like, how do you incorporate learning into an everyday, regular life without opening up a book? And can you sustain that for like 2 weeks before you start on a more formal schooling system? So that you're transitioning your kids from that 9 to 3 to a more relaxed learning style. And then, nowadays there's so many different homeschooling programs than there were. I mean, we've homeschooled over 18 years ago. So much has changed in that time. There are online classes, there are online high schools. It's very different. So just know that there's always a group for you that's out there, whether it's online, in person. Every imaginable curriculum is available. And tutors. Like my kids taught themselves calculus and physics because they wanted to learn it, and they learned it online. Like it's a very different learning style, and you need to be, I guess, cognizant of different learning styles and have faith that what you are doing works.
There's a line of faith through all of this, and just trusting that, you know what works for you and your situation, and you know how it evolves, and you're a competent, capable human to live this life.
That took a lot of time, especially in the beginning when we homeschooled the 3 kids. They're all 2 years apart. And everyone thought we were crazy. Our family thought we were crazy. Our friends thought we were crazy. the typical things. How are the kids going to learn? We were being unfair to them. Every imaginable thing was said to us. And we just kind of stayed our own lane for a good long while. And then when people saw that my kids were learning and could communicate and were, smart, a lot of that went out the window.
Yeah. And now just to dispel, like, I know this because I follow you on social media, but like, you have very thoughtful, intelligent children that are doing incredible things.
I truly believe that our kids came out as great kids because they had downtime. And when I mean downtime, like, we had a structured 9 to 12 every day, quote unquote, homeschooling, where they did regular subjects. But when you're working one-on-one with kids, they learn or don't learn. Like, it's obvious.
Yeah.
So the amount of time that's needed to explain X, Y, and Z comes really fast. Like, a kid either understands it or they don't, and you spend more time with them or you move on. So the structured homeschooling day was from 9 to 12. And then the afternoons were all downtime. And what I mean by that is sewing classes, cooking classes, field trips, games, creativity time. And as they got older and older, they had specific interests. And what I mean is, my son was in middle school and picked up a Rubik's Cube and just decided that he was going to learn how to do Rubik's Cube. But that turned into like competitions, and we traveled around, and he was an internationally ranked Rubik's Cuber for years. But had he not had that downtime or those chunks of hours to time on task with this Rubik's Cube, he wouldn't have developed this math mind.
Mm-hmm.
And the same for my daughter. My daughter's a professional contortionist. She just had time on task for afternoons for stretching, creating, training that just wouldn't have been there if she was in a traditional school. And then my third one is a professional video game player. But so much went into picking the game and building the computer that went around it, and just time on task of starting a game and finishing a game. Like, these were all things that were allowed in the afternoon time to figure out what their interests were, not forced interests.
Yeah. And that's kind of like the kids' buffet line.
Exactly.
And what do they need to feel like they're having fun and learning and nurtured and all of that?
Yes. And the other part is, my kids are like, know how to handle me. And what I mean is, sometimes I'll say things about like going to a party or having friends over or whatever it may be when they were much younger. And they'd be like, stop, those are your things that you want for us. They're not things that we want for us. And my kids like still say that to me, like, that's you, that's not me.
That is pretty awesome.
Yeah, it is. And, I say all the time, my kids help me be a better human. And I think so many kids have that ability, and it's up to us to pay attention to them. Meaning, like, I know many times if I don't do well with traffic. I don't like who I become in traffic. And just, we live on Long Island, and it's really changed over the years, and the traffic has just gotten worse and worse. But my kids are the first ones to say, relax. We have plenty of time. There's no need to get upset or stressed. Like, they know how to handle me and put me back into a state of calm instead of poking me. I mean, many times they do poke me, but for the most time, I'm saying they have that capacity to bring me back to who I want to be.
Your kids have the capacity to bring you back to who you want to be. That resonates.
Yeah.
That resonates. I feel like I always think of my kids as my greatest teacher.
Yeah.
I've learned more with them and through them than I could have ever learned in any other way.
You know, like a perfect example, I know I just gave the traffic one, but have you ever watched kids follow a recipe or make a meal? And what I mean is, they're not thinking about this has to be put together by X amount of time. We need to sit down and eat by X amount of time. We need to be cleaned up by X amount of time and then move on to the next thing. They're just in their flow of cooking the meal. No one's thinking 20 steps beyond what they're doing. And I still see that in my kids. Like, I still watch my kids prepare a meal, and I see that there's no stress or anxiety around preparing the meal because they're not thinking about the 10 steps that come after. They're just focused on what they're doing. And I want to be more like that. You know, like I was admitting before, like, it's a work in progress. And that's still a work in progress of being really present with what I'm doing and not thinking about what's next, or we need to get out the door for this, or, you know, I have a call, or I want to get this workout in. Like, just being really present with chopping the vegetables and really present with stirring and taking its time for these potatoes to cook. And I really admire my kids for that. And I want to be more like that.
I feel that. I was just thinking to myself, like, when was the last time I actually pursued an activity without thinking about what came next?
Yeah.
I can't actually come to mind. You know, because in this world right now, I have to be out the door at 8 o'clock so that I can get to my office at 8:28, and then I can get started. My computer starts up, all of this, you know, and then it all goes until, 7:15 bedtime for the little people. And.
Yeah.
I think Jess Lively does a lot of work about flow and that, and I love her work on this. And I think I've taken a step away from that, and just, there's so much to manage in life sometimes that I haven't given myself a whole lot of space to be in the flow. And I need to do that because that's where the magic is.
That is where the magic is. And you see it all the time in your kids. I know you do.
Yes.
I
totally do.
Whether they're playing with blocks, or they're just interacting with each other, or they're working on a project or painting, you can see their flow. And that's what I was saying before about, like, the kids and their creativity. Like, my son Frank was in the flow doing the Rubik's Cube, and it was so obvious to watch. And the same for my daughter, like, same for all of them. Like, you can see when kids are in the flow, and sometimes we lose that as adults. And it's like, pay attention to the things that are around you, because there's so many opportunities for you to learn, whether it's from your kids or other people around you. Like, the signs are there. It's up to us to pay attention.
Yes. That's really true. The signs are there. It's up to us to pay attention.
Yeah. Like the beach, like, that's a perfect sign of, like, winding down, of, like, being present because there's not all these noises around. It's being present because there are no cars. You have to bike from one place to the other. Like, these are signs. Like, pay attention, Christine. Your body feels great here. Like, what is it that makes it feel so good? And then how can you take that back to the real world with you?
And also, like, where you are when your body is feeling great, that is also real world.
Yeah, that's real world. Like, enjoy it. Take it in.
Yeah. I think sometimes I get really caught up in, well, that's the weekend. And I don't allow myself to see past the fact that, oh yeah, that could be more than just the weekend.
Yes. Yeah.
But you have to have a level of presence in that moment in order to appreciate it.
Yeah. Like, you were just at the lake.
Yeah.
And I know you were saying, like, oh my gosh, I forgot how much this lights me up.
Yeah.
So it's like paying attention to those signs. Okay, well, not that I want to live in that dream state of, we got to get back, and you're not enjoying your life. But maybe it means we drive to our nearest lake and spend a few hours there. How can that light me up?
Yes.
Or it means playing around with, is it the lake that lights me up? Is it the greenery that lights me up? Like playing around. What was it? Was it the silence? And then it's pulling those pieces in so that you get them more and more on a daily basis.
Yeah. I think almost always I notice when I do pay attention what's absent. And it's the extra noise. It's the screens.
Yeah.
It's the social media. It's that stuff that isn't present. And it's very easy to forget that it's the absence of something that makes it really interesting, like that makes something dynamic, not the location necessarily.
Yeah. And the other part to it is like being really honest with yourself. Listen, what would it mean for us to be at the lake? Like, What could that life be like?
Yeah.
What would I need to give up in order to have that life?
Yes.
And I don't think that those are crazy things to say. I think that we all have this life to live, and to live it now, not when. So what I'm trying to say is, if the beach really lights me up and really helps me feel healthy, what would I need to give up to be there more?
Yes.
Or how can I do that without thinking, oh, that'll happen 10 years down the road?
Right.
Like, how can I do that now and not just keep putting off my wants and desires? Because those are important. Those are signs. Pay attention to the signs.
Do you feel like you were putting off your wants and desires before you had cancer?
I think I didn't even tap into my wants and desires. Like, I didn't even know what to ask for, what to look for. When my kids were little, it was so hard. It was so hard having them 24/7. And I didn't know how to ask for help. I had all these invisible pressures that I put on myself to cook meals, to have a clean house, to help run my husband's business, to be a good mother. And I didn't know that no one cared about any of those things except for myself. Like, it was just stupid. And I didn't know what I needed help with. I just know I needed help.
Mm-hmm.
I just knew I needed the help. I just didn't know what it was. I didn't know it was, can you take my kids for 3 hours? And come back after the 3 hours, knowing that those 3 hours didn't solve years worth of pressure. I always thought, like, if I left and did some self-care, that if I came back and I still wasn't feeling great, like that there was something wrong with me. And now I try to explain to women that when we do take the time to take a yoga class or sit in silence or read a book, whatever our version of self-care is, that it's like a bank account. It doesn't just automatically work the first few times you do it. You have to add to that account. And we don't even recognize what's in the account until we're not doing it. So we could be taking the time each week to do a yoga class and come home, and I could still be grumpy, and I could still be not a great mom, and I could still be not a great wife or a great friend. But it's when we take out that yoga class that we realize how much that was helping us. So that again comes to that buffet line. Like, what are the things that we need in our life to help calm us, to help ground us, to help us be the better person that we want to be? Like, what are those things?
And trying them out.
And trying them out
is a matter of experimentation.
Yeah.
I think women, I know I've felt this, and I know I have friends that have felt this. We think, I just need like a week off. I just need a day at the spa. I just need this one like tiny little bit. My friend Meg earlier today, she's like, I just need a day with my planner. If I could just get one interrupted day with my planner, I would be able to figure out the world. And it's like, no, ladies, that is a splash in the ocean. It is not about having one day. And the emptiness that you feel after you have that one thing that you thought everything was going to get tied up into, and lo and behold, not so much.
Yeah.
That is a very sinky feeling.
It is.
And so to really be like, yeah, no, this is a bank account. This is something that we deposit in every day in 100 little ways, in a couple of big ways. And at the end of it, you end up having something here for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love thinking of it that way. I think that is a really powerful visual for me, because I think sometimes it feels, self-care, first of all, can feel very fluffy.
Yes.
And not very tangible. And then it can sometimes feel like just, a drop in the ocean.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I did a 12-week post, it's called like a life after cancer class. And basically the 12 weeks have all different subjects. I'm going to say the most important subject for the 12 weeks that kept getting revisited and revisited was what self-care is. And for the 20 women that were in the group class, the in-person group class, that was one of their biggest takeaways, was learning what self-care can look like. And these are women who have had cancer, who have spent a minimum of a year going through doctor visits and cancer treatments, and still not able to take the time out to go to a yoga class or take the time out to go on a 20-minute walk without feeling guilt. And it's like, if you can't grant yourself that, like something good after your cancer treatments, when is it good? Like, if you can't wrap your mind around doing something good for yourself after having cancer, when are you?
Yeah. And do you have to have that engagement with your life of, I have cancer, to actually get to that point? Or can you see the value of what you have in front of you before you even have that experience?
Well, gosh, I hope so. That's why I share my story over and over and over and over. Yeah. It's like, you don't have to wait till something bad happens in order to make changes in your life. You have the permission to do it now. And I hate that saying that life is short. Like, life is short, do it now. No, life is long. So yes. Do what you want.
Yes.
Because you can. Like, not because life is short and start making these changes. No, life is long. So start enjoying it.
Yes. I always say, I am blessed with a long life. And so that sometimes I will use that as my own kind of procrastination crutch. Like, this is a season, and, not everything can be for now, which is true, because not everything can be for now, but, or rather, life is long, and I should do what I want.
Yes, it's both.
It's both. You have the permission to do it now.
Yeah, you do.
Christine's given it to us, and we can give it to ourselves as well.
That's right. And I love asking that question of like, what would you like to give yourself permission for? And whether it's like for the next hour, what would you like to give yourself permission for? Or is like the next day, what would you like to give yourself permission for? Or maybe it's the season, like the fall season is upon us. What is it that you'd like to give yourself permission for?
Would you be willing to hold space with me for like 35 seconds here in quiet? And we will give women this time right now. I love how long 35 seconds can feel.
I got a lot of planning and dreaming in that permission time. Did you?
I did too. I think that the thing that I feel most passionate about in my work and my life right now is holding space for what is, and like teaching people how to create that container. Because I think it feels so big to say, oh, just what do you want permission to do? People will say, well, I'm going to need a long time to think about that. I need to set aside an hour, a day. I need to really think about that. But like really, you just need to hold the tiniest container and your brain will start to work for it.
Yeah,
There's something there.
I think, as women, we don't give ourselves the pauses.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the magic is. I say that to women all the time who are recovering, like the healing is in the rest.
The healing is in the rest.
The healing is in the rest. And that goes for regular women too. Like,
yes,
that's where the creativity is. That's where your body rests and repairs. That's where you have an opportunity to be that better person. Or be that person. You don't have to be a better person. Just be that person that you are. But that happens in the rest. That happens in the pauses. That doesn't happen when you're racing down the highway. It doesn't happen when you're checking 20 things off your to-do list. It happens in those pauses.
That is epic. When we think about and how we prioritize rest as a powerful tool.
Yeah.
And not just sleep, because I think sleep is really powerful, right? But rest is bigger than sleep. How do you define rest?
The downtime.
Mm-hmm.
It's the quiet time. It's those afternoons of homeschooling. Like that's rest. That's downtime. Endurance athletes, when they put together a training schedule, it includes rest. Like they're not just training all the time. You train and you increase your speed or you increase the quantity of time that you're out doing the activity, but there's always a rest time in there because your body needs to be able to heal and assimilate the things that you've just been pushing it to do.
Yeah.
And then the idea is that you come back stronger after the rest. And that training schedule is the same for real people in a day-to-day life. Like you can't just keep going from the time you wake up to the time you go to sleep and expect magic to happen. The magic happens when we do include that rest and downtime.
Yes. It's on the buffet line.
It's on the buffet line. And everybody's version looks different. Like mine could be the 20-minute bike ride I did this morning. It could be sitting down with that cup of coffee first thing in the morning, but be really present with that cup of coffee. It could be taking that coffee outside. It could be sitting in silence before the kids get up. Like, it's up to us to figure it out and then be really present when we do figure it out.
Mm-hmm. What a gift. All right, I've got a lightning round of questions. Are you ready?
Let's go. Let's go.
Okay. What is your go-to jam when you need to up your energy?
I guess a bike ride or a run.
Yeah. What time do you wake up?
Between 5:30 and 6.
What does breakfast look like?
Smoothie.
What is your favorite ritual?
Coffee drinking.
Are you a morning person or a night owl?
Morning.
What is a book you recommend the most?
The Big Leap.
What can someone do to help you feel appreciated?
Text me.
Nice. Christine, this has been the most joyful way to start my birthday. Thank you so much.
Well, maybe if this was the message you needed to hear.
I have 100%. We messaged each other yesterday.
Yep.
And I said, I feel like there is magic. Like, I know that there was some really divine intentionality from the universe and making this come together on this day.
Yeah. All right. Before we hang up, though, I do want to say this. The average life expectancy is 78. We hope we're beyond that, but that's what the average is. So take that 78 minus where you are now. And what do you want to be doing with that time? Because go do it. No one's going to tell you that when you get to age 65 that you could start doing X, Y, and Z and start living that life that you've been planning for. The message is start doing that life now. Like right now.
I've got some meetings I need to cancel. Because I could tell you what is not involved.
Correct. We might not know what it is that we're working toward, or we might not know what it is, but we know what it isn't.
Yes. The not this, as Elizabeth Gilbert likes to say.
Yes. And that's perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine knowing what isn't, because it's going to help you decide what is.
And I think it's an easier first step is to say, not this. Okay, well, that is progress in its own way.
Because the not this creates space.
Yes.
That we've been talking about for so long now. And maybe that space really is just the quiet. And maybe the quiet will lead to what the yes is.
That's awesome. Is there anything that I should have asked you about today, but I didn't get to?
No, not at all. I think we got to everything.
That was awesome. Thank you so much.
And happy birthday. I am honored to spend this morning with you on your special birthday.
Thanks. It was a real pleasure. It was a gift. It was. Thank you.
Thank you.